The reason you'll just get fat if you eat like a bodybuilder. Okay, so I noticed that there's a lot of information out there. Everybody wants to get big, right? Everybody wants to get buff, wants to have muscles, etc. And there's a lot of information out there. You know, if you follow bodybuilders, you'll be like, "Oh, I need to bulk. I need to bulk. I need to get up. I need to, get my weight up." Here's the problem. Yes, you're going to get your weight up, and yes, you're going to build muscle that way, but you're also going to get fat. Here's the thing. You don't need to do that in order to build muscle. You just don't. You just need to eat enough protein to where the muscle can recover. That's it. That's all you need to do. You need to eat enough carbs to give you energy throughout the day. You need to eat enough calories to where you have enough energy to do everything you need to do during the day. Have enough protein to replenish, the muscle breakdown so it can rebuild. And that's it. That's all you need to do. If you're doing excess calories, you're going to gain weight. You're going to gain fat. The reason why it works for bodybuilders is because they're putting in an insane amount of effort that you're not. They're in the gym 2, 3, 4 hours a day. They're killing their body. They're doing things that you're not doing. Their workouts are 4 times as hard, 4 times as long, 4 times as much weight. They need that extra food. They need that extra calories in order to maintain and keep the energy and replenish their muscles. You don't if you're not on steroids. That's the thing. You can't recover the same as they can. You are not recovering the same as they are. Your body is not doing the same amount of work as theirs are doing because you can't do that. You can't put up the weight that they're putting. You can't put as much time in as they're putting because your body won't allow it. You simply will have no energy to go to the gym. I've been struggling with this for 20 years. Oh, I'm tired all the time. Oh, I'm overtraining. Oh, I'm just. If you're a natural bodybuilder, if you naturally want to get muscle, it depends on how much testosterone you have. It depends on your physiology, right? Some guys recover faster. Some guys have more athletic ability. Some guys are just able to work harder, put more output, right? Naturally, right? And everybody's physiology is different. You might have the same amount of testosterone as another guy, but for some reason you're just able to outwork that other guy because there's just something about the human body that's intangible. It's not a one. It's never a 1-to-1. It's never like, oh, I'm exactly like this guy. We have the same testosterone. All our, markers are the same. All our test results are the same. We should be able to put out the same amount, and yet he's killing you, and you can't keep up with him. There's just some intangible thing about humans is that we're all different. You might be able to work out 3 days a week. He might be able to work out 6 days a week. You don't know. Does that necessarily mean that, you're not going to be able to put on as much muscle as him? Maybe not, because it might take you longer. Maybe your body is slower than his. So you're just not going to be able to do what bodybuilders do because they're on steroids, right? You're just not. So you don't need to eat as much. You don't need to eat every 3 hours. 2 times a day, 3 times a day max. And even that varies. Some people need more calories. Some people need more nutrition. Some people maybe need to eat more. But really, you're not going to be eating 3 meals, or excuse me, you're not going to be eating a meal every 3 hours. That's not going to happen because, you could do it, but I'm saying you're not going to do that and not get fat because you're eating too much in excess. Again, people think they're smart. Oh, this is my bulk phase. Yeah, okay. Yes, you're bulking up. And yes, you're going to be gaining muscle through that process, but you would gain muscle either way. As long as you're in the gym, as long as you're putting up heavy weights, as long as you're breaking down that muscle, you don't even have to be putting up heavy weights. As long as you're stressing the muscle and giving the muscle enough time to recover, whether it's 8 reps heavy weights, whether it's 15 reps lighter weights, okay? As long as you are stressing the muscle and you're giving it enough time to recover, it doesn't matter the excess calories that you put in. It doesn't matter, even the rep range or the weight, limit that you're putting on. As long as you are, time under tension, as long as you're getting that I don't know how to say that word, hypertrophy, whatever. So you're breaking down the muscle, right? As long as you're getting that, you're fine. All you have to do is eat enough protein to recover. All you have to do is eat enough calories and carbs to maintain your energy throughout the day, so you don't crash. So you have enough, calories to get through the day. You're fine. You're fine. And here's the thing: it's okay. You're gonna look skinny. Here's what people don't understand. They think that like bulking up means it's muscle, but it's actually a lot of it is fat. A lot of it is fat. A lot of the reason why you look round and bulky is because there's a ton of fat there. Once you strip it off, once you do a really massive cut, you're gonna look skinny again. It's just the concept is that, oh, well, once I strip that off, then that muscle's going to be there, and then that muscle is going to be larger than if I didn't bulk. I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true. I don't think you have to bulk to get larger muscles. I don't think it works that way. The body is just the body. If you put enough stress and pressure on it, it's going to respond. There's a reason why the bodybuilders, the golden era bodybuilders, they weren't bulking up, they weren't mass monsters, but they still looked huge. They still looked like they had big muscles because they did have big muscles. They didn't need to actually, most of them were in ketosis. Most of them were doing keto diets, mostly meat, butter, vegetables, relatively low carbs. That's what most of the golden era bodybuilders were doing. The new era after them, the mass monsters, you got Lee Haney, Dorian Yates, Ronnie Coleman. These guys came along, and then what they did was they started upping the carbs. They started eating every 3 hours, and they looked disgusting. These guys look like genetic mutations. They don't look good. The aesthetics has gone from bodybuilding, and it never came back after the golden era, after the 80s, after the 70s, all the way up to the early 80s. I think mid 80s was when I think Lee Haney started coming in and the mass monsters started taking over, but it stopped being about aesthetics and it started just being about mass, and it never recovered, right? And so, and this concept, this prevailing, concept of you have to be massive has never stopped permeating guys' heads ever since then. Ever since then, guys are just like, oh, I need to be big. I need to be big. You're gonna get big. That's the thing. Actually, I think, in my opinion, longer, more athletic, chiseled down body that's thinner, I think that's better in many ways. It's more as far as longevity is concerned, it's more sustaining long term, right? You're not, because when you're putting in all this massive amounts of calories and massive amounts of food, what are you doing? You are stressing your organs. You're stressing your stomach. You're stressing your kidneys. You're stressing your liver because it has to detox all that. You're constantly detoxing. And when you start studying like fasting, and you learn that what happens during the fasting process is that your body breaks down dead cells. It breaks down, disease and sickness in your, because there's stuff in your body that the only reason you're not getting sick is because you have processes that are going on. There's always stuff in our body. There's always like negative bacteria in our stomach. There's always stuff in our blood and things. But it's just that our body is always, it's always filtering that stuff out through the kidneys or the liver or through whatever processes it does, metabolic or whatever, right? When you start learning about this stuff, it's amazing. Like it's not that there's these foreign things out there that sometimes come into your body. A lot of times that stuff is always in your body. And it's just that bacteria and disease and sickness, it gets filtered out, whether again through the kidneys or whatever. So if you're constantly, putting food in your body, you're always stressing your organs. It's the same thing of like smoking. If you're putting carcinogens constantly in your lungs, eventually your lungs just can't take it and you get lung disease or you get lung cancer, right? So if you just eat food, 5 meals a day, every 3 hours, I'm eating, your body's just like, oh, geez. Fasting is a superpower. This is why intermittent fasting works so well for so many people, is because it breaks down the fats, it breaks down the diseases, it breaks down the things in your body. There's a term called autophagy. I think I said that right, or no, yeah, autophagy, something like that, where it breaks down the dead things in your body. It breaks down, all these things. This is what happens after every I think it's like 16 to 24 hours. Your body starts going into this phase where it's breaking down dead things. It's breaking down diseases and dead skin cells and dead cells in your blood, and it's flushing these things out, and then you start to get into ketosis. Your body's releasing ketones. It's eating. It's getting its fuel off of the fat. It's not getting fuel off of the protein, right? You can fast for 48 to 72 hours, and your muscles will be fine. It'll just take off your fat. I recommend fasting for everybody. But the point is that we're just putting too much in our body. Are you going to get big? Yes. Is your bigness going to be all muscle? No. There's going to be a ton of fat. Because whenever you're putting in excess calories, you're putting excess fat. Because here's the thing. You can't help but eat whatever you're eating. It's not just calories. It's also carbs. It's also fat. It's also protein. Even excess protein turns into fat. So you're having, it's not just, I'm only in this excess calories. No, you're also in excess fat. You're also in excess carbs. You're also in excess sugars, saturated fats, polyunsaturated, monounsaturated fats. You're also in excess protein, right? And these things wreak havoc on our body because it's too much, and it adds fat. Extra protein will add fat. This is why it's important to measure out your food. I know these things firsthand. I thought this too, 5-10 years ago. Oh, I need to eat more. And I did. And I grew. I gained a bunch of weight. But gaining weight on the scale is not the same thing as having a bunch of muscle. Yes, it'll help you get bigger in a sense. But here's the thing. You would get bigger anyways. And you're going to look much better. You're going to look much better. You're not going to have that gut. You're not going to have that thing sticking out. Look at all the bodybuilders. Look at all the bodybuilders from the 1980s on. Whenever they were sitting down or not striking a pose, their guts would stick out. Why? Because they ate so much, it stretched their stomach. Now you could say, oh, it's HGH, it's human growth hormone, it caused, enhancements of their organs or whatever. That probably too. It probably stuck their gut out more. But no, if you eat a lot, your stomach is going to stretch. And what happens when your stomach stretches? You got a beer gut. That's what happens. You got a belly. It's going to protrude and it's going to stick out and you're going to look fat, even though it's not necessarily fat. It's just an enlarged stomach. You're going to look fat. So what happens when you start fasting and you start eating less is your stomach shrinks, right? It'll eventually shrink. Eventually, it might take some time. Some people say, "Oh, it never shrinks." No, that's not true. It'll shrink, but that's a side effect. Then they don't tell you that. the bodybuilders, because they're going off of what works for them in their goals and their mindset. You don't want to have a big belly. You're not a bodybuilder. You're not taking steroids, so you don't need to do that. You don't need to eat every 3 hours. It doesn't make any sense. And your body will adjust, and then you'll start getting hungry every 3 hours. But if you do the opposite and you start eating maybe 2 times a day, maybe 3 times a day, but really 2 times a day, super high protein, super high, you know, fats, calories, to where you're getting your 2,500 calories a day, to where you're getting your 3,500 calories, a day. And maybe you don't even need that much. Maybe you only need 2,000. Maybe you only need 1,700. As long as you're hitting your protein, as long as you're, protein's the most important. You need that protein. 100% most important. You could give calories, and actually, yeah, I would say it's better to always be in a deficit. But the thing is as long as you're getting your protein, you won't really notice that you're in a deficit. We don't need carbs as much as we think we do. Not to say that some carbs aren't helpful and important, because you need those you need that energy. But if you're not a bodybuilder, if you're not on steroids, if you're not putting in 4 hours a day because that's all you do is bodybuild, then you don't need that to eat every 3 hours a day, twice a day, maybe once a day. Just get a little bit of carbs, get enough carbs to where you have enough energy, or substitute a lot of fat. Just do minimal carbs, a lot of fat, a lot of protein, and forget about calories, right? Because the calories will be there, but as long as you got to get that protein. Protein is the most important, because you're building that body back up. It needs those amino acids. It needs that recovery, rebuilding process. If you do that, get minimal carbs, eat enough fat, because fat will be used as fuel as well, and you're constantly in a ketosis state, you're constantly burning fat, the muscle is not going to go away. Because what's the goal? The goal is to have the muscle. That's what everybody wants. You want the muscle. That's the goal. As long as you're as long as you got the protein, as long as you're doing the gym correctly, as long as you got enough energy throughout the day, give the body protein, fats, minimal carbs. Don't worry about calories, as long as you're not doing excess, and eat healthy food. I hear this a lot of stupid bro science. Oh, it doesn't matter what you eat as long as you're in a calorie deficit. Yes, it does. It does. It matters what you eat. Eat healthy foods. Eat clean foods. Eat non-processed foods. It 100% matters. Eat organic foods. You don't put crap oil or crap gas in your car and expect your car to run at high performance. It's not going to work. You have to put quality food into your body. Period. The end. You have to put quality food into your body. Oh, I'm counting calories and I got my calories from this sugary drink. Like, no, you're gonna have a crash. It's gonna mess your blood sugar up. It's gonna mess your kidneys up. It's gonna mess up your organs. This is the problem with that stupid bro science thinking, where all I gotta do is hit my macros, hit my calorie limit. Doesn't matter what type of food that I eat, as long as I'm hitting those. Bullshit. Yes, quote unquote, you can lose weight by eating junk food, quote unquote, if you're always in a calorie deficit, quote unquote, but you're also not going to have any energy. You're also going to mess your brain chemistry up. You're going to mess your neurotransmitters up. You're going to mess up your health. You're going to look pale. You're going to look sickly, because that's what unnatural food does to people. You have to eat organic, natural, whole foods. You have to eat non-processed, quality foods like we're supposed to do, right? Yes, most things are processed to some degree. Least processed food that you can eat, that's what you need to eat. The least processed foods. If it's got 1 million ingredients on the label, learn to read labels. That's one of your best friends. Learn to read labels. If it's got 1 million ingredients on the label, never put that in your body. Learn what things to avoid. Learn what little things they hide in the labels. You got to read. You got to study. It took me 20 years, to learn everything I know. I'm not saying I'm amazing. I'm not saying I've failed a lot. I'm not saying I got the most amazing body, but I know what I'm doing now. You know, trial and error. You got to learn. Pick up a nutrition book. Pick up some quality some quality books out there, and find some quality teachers. Find some quality nutritionists, not medical doctors, nutritionists, and learn about organic whole foods. Learn about what not to put in your body. Learn what type of things to drink. Learn what type of things to eat. Learn what type of things to avoid. It makes a big, big difference. There's a lot of dudes out there who might have some muscle, but they're actually unhealthy as hell. I was around this dude once. I was doing some videos for him. I was a videographer. I mean, I am a videographer, but I was doing some videography for him. He's a bodybuilder, and I was standing next to him, and we're not running. He wasn't even lifting. He was just standing next to me, and he's breathing heavy. He's like, and the guy's muscular. He didn't look like Rich Piana or anybody. He wasn't a mass monster, but he was big. He was muscular, but he couldn't breathe very well. And I'm like, this guy isn't even. He's not running. He's not walking. He's just standing there. He didn't do any exercises. He was just standing there talking to me, and he was breathing hard. And I'm just like, this dude is unhealthy as hell. He's probably got high blood pressure. His heart's pumping too hard. And it's not because of the muscle. It's because of the damage that he's done with all the steroids, because of the damage that he's done with all the unnatural foods that he's put in his body. Yeah, you can, if you're lifting heavy and you're on steroids, you can probably get away with eating junk food to some degree. I know Rich Piana would have 2 tubs or 1 or 2 tubs of Ben and Jerry's ice cream every night. He's like, oh, as long as it's in my calorie, as long, you're unhealthy as hell. And I think Rich Piana died of a diabetic coma or something like that. He had a hypoglycemic episode or something. That's how he died. You're killing yourself, man. If you put sugar or super high processed food, junk food, food that's not even real food in your body, and as long as you're just, I got my calories in, I got my macros in, like, no. You need to learn how to eat nutritious food. So anyway, you don't need to follow this modern advice. You need to eat healthy food. You need to eat quality food, but you don't need to eat as much as you think you do. As long as you're getting enough protein, as long as you're recovering. And here's the other thing. When you start to eat less food, you actually have more energy, believe it or not. It kind of is, it's almost counterintuitive. You think, oh, I need food for energy, kind of. But actually what your body starts to do is because it's processing, it's using fat for fuel because you're in ketosis, because you've been fasting, you just naturally have more energy. It's a weird thing because your body is like kicked into gear, and it's like, okay, and it's actually using the stored fat as energy, and you actually have more energy. It's a weird thing. So your body becomes more like a performance machine when you not only you give it the right fuel, but you also don't feed it as much. Imagine if you just every couple miles you put gas in your car, you put more oil in your car. It would just get overwhelmed. You don't need to do it that much. You don't need to feed yourself as much as you think you do. Anyways, I think if you guys change your diet that way, it would be helpful. I think if you would find that, and again, I always go back to the golden era bodybuilders, because this is what they did. They ate high protein, high fat, low carb, and I don't think they ate. They might have ate more often, but I don't know if they did. I don't know if they did any more often. But they certainly were on steroids, I'll tell you that. But they also were eating a lot of protein, and they didn't eat as much carbs, and they looked better. They looked more aesthetic. And yes, they were smaller, but they didn't look genetically modified. They looked almost natural. Yes, they obviously weren't natural, but they looked almost like they could be. They weren't so big where it was like, that's maybe unachievable. And that's where, like, I think people really bought into it because they were like, look at Arnold, or look at, what's the guy? He was Francisco, or whatever his little friend was. Look at Serge Nubret. Look at Frank Zane, right? These guys were thin. Believe it or not, they looked thin. If they were wearing, a lot of times, Arnold, when he would wear regular clothes, he looked big, but it wasn't like, you see Nasir El Somebody or whatever from the 90s, or you see Jay Cutler from the 90s, when they were wearing like a suit or clothes, they looked like they're obese or something. They weren't that big. They weren't that big. They looked almost normal in regular clothes. And that's what was so, Franco Columbu, that's his name. Franco Columbu. If you look at like Franco Columbu, he looked pretty normal. He looked buff, right? But he didn't look like he was genetically modified. These guys today, they look like they're like, those bulls where they give them steroids, or that's what they look like. It's disgusting. As a natural bodybuilder, as a natural weightlifter, you probably are not going to look massive. It depends on your body type and stuff, but you're probably not going to look massive. But in fact, sometimes it's cool to fool people. Sometimes it's cool to like, yeah, I don't look, but then you take your shirt off and you're like, whoa, that guy's ripped. That guy's just got so much muscle, because muscle doesn't always necessarily make you look fat. It doesn't always necessarily make you look big. But it's good to have muscle. I'm not saying you won't look big, but you don't need to bulk up, because you're gonna start to look like a power lifter. You're gonna start to look like, you're gonna start to look overweight. Straight up, you're gonna start, and you will be overweight. You will have that gut if you eat too much. If you I'm bulking, da da da. I don't think you need to do it. I don't think I think a lot of bodybuilders. I've heard a lot of bodybuilders are like, yeah, I never really did the bulking. I always just, or I never really, I was thin, there's always one or two, you hear them and they're like, yeah, I was thin all year round. I didn't need to do all that massive bulking. And it's not, to me, it's like, okay, maybe they're not as huge as the other guys, but they look better to me. They look more healthy. They look more aesthetic. You're gonna live longer because you're doing less wear and tear to your organs, and of course you're gonna live longer if you don't do steroids. But yeah, never do steroids, because you're just screwing your future up, But again, you get unhealthy. You get unhealthy when you eat a lot more food. Your body's just like, you age more too. There's all kinds of stuff, because you're not giving your organs time to replenish, time to recover. You're not giving your body its natural processes of doing away with waste, which is what happens when we fast. You're kind of supercharging your body's natural defense systems when you fast. It's massively getting rid of waste. It's great. I think everybody should fast, and I think people should eat less, as long as you're hitting that, as long as you're getting enough protein, as long as you're getting, a gram of protein per pound of fat. And how you do that? A lot of times you do it through supplements. You got to do the protein powder, because there's very little calories in the protein powder. There's no fat in the protein powder. There's no carbs in the protein powder. It's just protein. So you need high quality protein powder, because you need that protein. And then you just need enough maintenance carbs to get through the day, whether it's through veggies or a little bit of rice or whatever, a little bit of fruit, whatever you need to do to get that little bit of maintenance carbs. And you need the antioxidants in fruit. You need it's good to have some starch, in your diet from, say, carbs or whatever. And then as long as you're getting the fats, and you'll get that in the eggs, you'll get the fats if you do a little bit of oil in your cooking, you're going to get some fats. And if you eat, red meat, you're going to get some fats. And you need the fats too. Fats also work as fuel, right? If you get that, you're gold. You don't need to worry about bulking. You don't need to worry about every 3 hours because you're not on steroids. Your body is not. You don't have the same turnover. You don't have the same recovery process. It's not the same thing. Anyways, hope y'all are blessed. This is Jay Lee, Northwest Podcast. Peace.